Hello, today we're going to do an overview of Worldwide Telescope and all the things that you will need in order to use it in the planetarium. Some of the things I'll be saying will be a little bit different. At the planetarium, there will be a Xbox 360 controller that you can use to navigate with. The controls for that will be a little bit different. Those controls are posted in the planetarium themselves. But today I'm just going to be using the browser version of Worldwide Telescope. All of the controls though that I'm using, you can also use in the planetarium if you wanted to sit on the computer and use a mouse and keyboard. You can do that in the planetarium. You don't have to use the Xbox 360 controller. So to start off, you're going to see this screen when you boot up Worldwide Telescope. There's a lot going on, but there's really only a few things you need to know in order to use this for the planetarium. First, this is your Explore tab here, the first tab. This is just going to have all kinds of interesting objects to look at that Worldwide Telescope gives you automatically. So you have Hubble studies, for instance, and you have nebulae, and it'll open folders. And then eventually you're going to get to some images here. So if you have a class that's really into looking at the Crab Nebula, for instance, you can click on it and Worldwide Telescope will automatically orient itself and zoom in to look at the Crab Nebula. If you've done this, down here, you should see the Crab Nebula a bunch of times, just in different filters. So you can look at it here in this filter, all kinds of other filters going on. I'm not quite sure what all of these are, but they're all at your disposal. If you know what you're talking about, then you can cycle through these pretty quick and it'll automatically change them. To go back, you just click this upper level button. You can keep going again. And then here, it'll give you back these main folders. If you want to zoom out, you can use the scroll wheel. So you just scroll all the way out. And there's a set distance you can scroll out. If you keep going past the maximum distance, it'll stop you. So here is your default view. Down here is going to be a picture of the globe or the kind of the celestial sphere. And as you rotate, so you rotate by clicking the middle mouse button and dragging it left or right or up and down, just move your mouse around. You can move your field of view. And as you see, as I move my field of view, this yellow rectangle will change as well. That's just showing you where you're oriented on the celestial sphere. You also get an update of your right ascension and declination as you're moving it around. So if you get tripped up though, so if you're kind of moving this around and then you're like, oh my gosh, I don't know where I am anymore, you can orient yourself by clicking or looking at this view tab here. There's a drop down arrow. All you have to do is click that there and you can click reset camera and it'll orient you back. And you should always be reoriented to the ecliptic. That's what this blue dotted line is that goes across the sky. That's going to be your ecliptic. Speaking of that, we're going to click on this here. This is going to be your show/hide layer manager. If you click on that, it'll bring up all of these check marks. And it looks like a lot, but 9 times out of 10, you're only going to be using a couple of these. So the most important ones are going to be for your constellations and grids when you're looking at the night sky. So for instance, we have constellation boundaries checked. That's going to be this yellow outline. So as I rotate around the sky, you get like an outline of your constellation boundaries. Often this is kind of just annoying and in the way. So you can just click out of it. You don't need it. You can also turn on constellation names if you want. It'll name all of the constellations. And you can turn on or off constellation figures. Sometimes what I like to do right before a planetarium starts, before people are in, I'll turn off all of the layers. So when guests arrive, they can just look at the night sky. There's an audio track. You can play cricket music. It's very nice and relaxing for people. You can turn on constellation figures again. Sometimes we'll get elementary age students or middle school students. And a good way to kind of get their attention to focus on the night sky, you can click constellation pictures and up will come images of all of the constellations. That will usually get their attention. You can ask them if they recognize any of these constellations and have them name them. That's a really fun one to do as well. I also like to highlight to groups that these are just Roman and Greek constellations, and that every culture across the globe has their own set of unique constellations. And I always encourage them to go research other kinds of constellations and other myths if they like and they're interested in that. There's all kinds of fun stories going on in the night sky, like Taurus fighting Orion, for instance. We have the Gemini twins, lots of really interesting stories going on there. So we can turn off constellation pictures. You can turn back on the figures. So that's going to be kind of your constellation overlay. Really, you're just going to be turning on constellation figures on and off, maybe constellation names, and sometimes constellation pictures. Then down here we have grid. You can turn on and off the ecliptic. Like I said, this is the blue dashed line down here. You can toggle that on and off. This is going to be your most important one, especially when you're talking about the zodiac signs and the motion of the sun through the sky throughout the year. Oftentimes, a big part of schools' curriculums will be observing the night sky and the motions of the planets and the stars, and talking about the ecliptic is super important. So you want to have this on at least partially when you're talking about the ecliptic. These other grids, though, are not going to be as useful. You can kind of toggle them back on and off. I can toggle them real quick to show you what they look like. But again, often, unless you're looking or you're talking to maybe some college students or general public with a lot of adults, maybe some amateur astronomers, you could toggle these on and talk about them. But for the most part, you're really only going to be using the ecliptic. Another thing you might have noticed as I've been rotating around, down here, you're going to see Worldwide Telescope is going to tell you some interesting objects that are going to be in that part of the night sky. And you can click on them and it will auto focus on that and zoom in. So as you're moving around, you can do that if you're looking for things to talk about in the night sky. So that's going to be pretty much it for the night sky. One last thing before we leave the sky view is down here where it recommends images or objects to look at. You're going to see imagery here, and it's going to be digitized sky survey color. This is going to be your default view. If you want to talk about different wavelengths of light, then this is going to have a bunch of different surveys of the night sky in different wavelengths. So here we have infrared. Here, this is WISE. We have radio here. This one looks a little funky. And then you have the cosmic microwave background, all kinds of different ones. You can kind of go through them, toggle which ones you like, incorporate them into the shows as you kind of get better and more attuned with it. But most of these are going to be done using the digitized sky survey here. This is going to be a color image here. So that's going to be your sky. One last thing before I move on. If you click on the view window here, often it's good to talk about how the sky will look different at different latitudes. That's another important one. So if you click this button, view from this location, it'll orient you and put you at the latitude and longitude of the planetarium. Your default altitude should be probably around 100 meters. I wouldn't focus too much on this. You can just leave that at 100 meters. It's not going to make a big difference. You could uncheck it. Notice that this didn't change my latitude and longitude. It just kind of changed the rotation a little bit. But if you click these buttons over here, these are going to be how you move through time. So if you want to show students how stars move throughout the night, these are great buttons. So this will get you to where it is now. You can pause time. This will start it on real time. And then this button right here, kind of the fast forward symbol, is going to be how you go forward in time. So it starts at 10 times, and then 100, and then 1,000. And it's not going to do it because I'm not clicked through from this location. So if you click that again, and we start it up again, 100 times you'll see a little bit motion, and then 1,000 you'll see a lot of motion. I will say, if you go over 1,000, especially in the planetarium where people are looking straight up above them, this could give a lot of people motion sickness. And quite possibly yourself. So I wouldn't go over 1,000. The play button is also going to be what's going to make you go down a step. A lot of people will try and click these, and this will just reverse time. I will say reversing time, I have never found to be useful. So 9 times out of 10, you're just going to be click and play, fast forward and play again, maybe pause. And 1,000 is time speed is going to be the fastest you'll ever want to go during the night sky view. You could go more if you want to look at the motion of the planets, which we'll talk about in a little bit. So that's how you're going to speed through time. If you uncheck view from this location and you click setup, you can change the latitude to 90 degrees. It might not let me. So you can always do choose globe. If you go to, let's say, the spot on Greenland, right near the North Pole, and you click set location, and then you view from this location, you'll have to go down here and click on Earth, back to sky, and now your sky should change. You notice that your latitude and longitude are a bit different. And then you can click through the time buttons. And hopefully students will notice that your stars, the motion of the stars will change as you change latitudes. So if we go back to now, we can go to, let's see if it'll change it now. No, it won't. That's very odd. It used to let you do that, but no big deal. If you want to see what it looks like at the equator, you can just kind of get your cursor as close as you can get to the equator. You want your latitude to be 0, obviously. Set your location, go back to sky. Here we have our sky view. And as we fast forward, we notice that the motion changes. All those stars are going to go up and go down across the horizon. That's a good time to talk about circumpolar stars. So that's how you're going to change your time. This is how you're going to change your location. This might be a little bit different in the planetarium depending on if this program is updated or not. Usually, you should be able to click setup and just type in a latitude and click OK, and it'll automatically move you to that latitude. For some reason, it's not working right now on this browser version, but that's no biggie. It might just be something that's only available for your desktop downloaded version. But we'll kind of get out of this view here. This is going to be a nice time to talk about these other windows that you might have seen when I switched back to the sky view. So if you click on look at here, you'll have some different options. Your first one is Earth. So that's going to be this guy here. This is just going to show you an image of the Earth. And you'll notice, let me get rid of this layers tab. You can notice that there's no sky in the background. There's no stars. It's not letting you know of any interesting objects to look at, because this is just going to be an image of the Earth. What is really neat, though, is that as you zoom into the Earth, this is actually using Bing's map, and you can zoom in and get finer and finer detail, and even getting as close up to, you should be able to see the planetarium. Here it is right there. That's a fun one to show students, and kind of zooming out as you go through. Maybe if you don't need to talk about the night sky and you just want to talk about the solar system and talk about the planets, you can start on this view, zoomed into the planetarium, and slowly zoom out throughout the solar system. But you're probably not going to be using this tab for much of anything, just because it is going to be the Earth. Planet is going to be just like the name suggests. You'll be able to go to different planets and look at them. Again, there's not going to be any night sky here. There's a better way to look at the planets, and that'll be in the next image or the next tab. Obviously, we have sky. We're back to where we were. Here, we have panorama. This is going to be some like panoramics of different sites through, usually it's going to just be the moon and Mars. So here's opportunity. These panoramas don't, in my opinion, don't look very good in the planetarium because of the dome, the way the dome's set up. They look a little bit lackluster. So honestly, you're probably not going to be using panoramas very much unless you have a class that is specifically really interested in Mars or the moon. And then the next one is going to be solar system. This is going to be the one that I personally use the most. So using the same method that you use to move across the night sky, you're going to click middle mouse button, so the scroll wheel, and you can rotate around the solar system. So when you click on solar system, so when you go to this and click solar system, it should automatically orient you and have your center point be the sun. This makes kind of rotating around the solar system really easy. This is going to be another good time to bring back up this layers menu, because when you're looking at the solar system, usually the constellations get in the way more so than they're necessary. So what I like to do is I like to just click off constellations. You can close this window if it starts getting too cluttery. And I like to click off grids as well. The ecliptic doesn't really matter when you're looking at other planets, because the ecliptic is just for Earth, or at least that's only showing you Earth's ecliptic. Here, if you ever wanted to, you could turn off you can turn on the orbit, or you can look at these layers and you can turn on and off planets. You're probably not going to be clicking these, to be honest, just kind of leave them up. If you go to a planet and it's not there, then one of these is probably not clicked and you're not going to see the planet. Scroll down, your 3D universe is going to be what you're going to be using for your solar system view. So you can kind of click up on, you have your 2D sky, you have overlays, and then you have 3D universe. Oh, there we go. So here you can turn on moon and satellite orbits. This is fun when you're looking at Jupiter, for instance. So let's kind of showcase that. To go to any one of these planets, all you have to do is click on it, and it should send you to Jupiter. Let's see if it's perfect. So you click on one of these planets, and it'll send you right to Jupiter for our example here. And here you can see some of those moons popped up real quick, but without the moons and satellite orbits ticked, you're not going to see the moons or the orbits of even the bigger moons, like the Galilean moons. So you can click this, be warned, you're going to get a lot of lines because it's going to show you all of the smaller minor moons around the planets. So if you click this, you're going to get a lot of lines in the background. Here are your Galilean moons, 3 and where's 4? For some reason, 4 is not showing up. So we'll look at Jupiter. All of these are clicked. So I'm not sure why the 4th orbit is not showing, but most of the other orbits are going to be showing. So here's kind of like a clutter of a bunch of moons around Jupiter. So that's going to be kind of your moons and satellites orbits. Might be a little bit more useful when you're looking at the Earth. You can also, we just want to click on the sun. You can double click to go really fast. That's going to be something that's useful. If you don't want to worry about travel time, just double click on any of these bodies down here. So for the asteroids, you can click this button here, and it should there we go. When you click this, it'll highlight all of the asteroids and comets in the solar system. So you have your outer Kuiper belt objects, you have your Trojan asteroids, and then you have your asteroid belt here. Unfortunately, these are not like modeled. So there's not going to be a 3D model like we have of the planets. But that might be a good place to talk to students about how even if you're in the asteroid belt standing on an asteroid, you're not going to see another asteroid. It doesn't look like it does in Star Wars, which does kind of ruin it for some people. Some people think that's really interesting. Another really important slider is going to be over here. So here it's going to show planet size. Right now it's scaled all the way over to actual. You can move this slider and you can make it all the way up to large. And then here you'll see the planets got a lot bigger. So did the sun, kind of like a cartoon representation of the solar system. For scale and kind of making it more true to size, I personally like keeping it more towards actual. And then for instance, we can look at Earth. So here's Earth, and then let's see if it'll do it for the moon. It should. So there's some, looks like there's some issues with the scaling. There's a couple bugs. Obviously, right, the Earth should, or the, oh, that's going to be the ISS. So this is a good part. This will show you the ISS orbit here. And then way out here is going to be the moon. I thought that was going to be a bug with the scaling. Looks like it's not. Then you turn that back off. And the moon orbit should go away, but it won't. You can also toggle planetary orbits here. That'll turn all of them off. And kind of going back to what I was talking about with speeding up time, if you want to look at the orbits of the planets, make sure that you're always tracking the sun. So you can always make sure, you can always double check what you're tracking by looking here. It'll say tracking sun. We can zoom out real quick using the scroll wheel. And we can turn up time. Notice, obviously, you're not going to see much motion at about 100 times speed. Even 1,000 times speed, you're not going to really see anything. 10,000 times, nothing. And then I think that's 100,000. You're going to start seeing a little motion. And so you just keep clicking up until you start seeing motion. If you want to focus on the inner solar system, there it is. I think that's about 1 million or 10 million. You'll start seeing the motion of the inner planets going pretty quick. Farther out you go, you're going to need to turn up the speed a little bit. If you turn up the speed though, to like 1 million times speed and you're not tracking the sun, and let's say you were tracking Mercury on 1,000,000 times speed, your camera is going to shake back and forth really crazy. So I can show you what that looks like. Again, this is really disorienting when you do it in person in the planetarium, but here we can kind of just speed up time. So yeah, you get that real crazy effect. It's like you're on an amusement park ride. Unfortunately, one thing to look out for, Pluto is not up to date. This is a little bit of an older program, so this is going to be your artist rendition of Pluto. That's something to keep in mind. But what's really neat about the solar system view is it allows you to not only talk about the solar system, but you can keep zooming out. And eventually you're going to notice these background stars will begin to move. With the Xbox controller, it's going to be a lot more fluid. You're going to get a little bit more of a zoom out. And if you zoom out even more, you're going to see our Milky Way galaxy. This is a great time to remind people that this is an artist rendition of the Milky Way galaxy. And then the rest of the extragalactic part of Worldwide Telescope was done using the Sloan Digital Sky Survey. And so you're going to see evidence of that with these strips here. That's just because of the way the Sloan Digital Sky Survey took in the data. And then they stitched it together to make this 3D model of the universe. If you get it just right, you should be able to see galaxies. So like here, you'll see a galaxy with some good spirals. But you're not going to be able to click on any of these and go to them, unfortunately. That would be pretty neat. You can keep zooming out. And if you zoom out far enough, here you'll kind of see the structure, that Sloan Digital Sky Survey structure here. You can see the webbing. If you're familiar with kind of more cosmology, you can talk about that structure, the Sloan Digital Sky Survey. If you zoom out, by default in the planetarium, there is going to be something that is checked, and it's going to be, we go up to sky, and we go to, there's normally going to be a cosmic microwave background if you zoom out far enough. Right now, it's not checked. I don't know exactly where it is, but if you zoom out as far as you possibly can, you'll kind of see a sphere that is surrounding this bow tie or butterfly looking thing. And that's going to be your cosmic microwave background radiation. That's going to be checked by default in the planetarium. In this browser version, it's not. Let's see if we can find it. No. So it looks like I'm not able to find it, but it would be in one of these drop-down menus. It's not going to be in any of these other ones, but that's kind of really just be about it for the solar system view. Quite honestly, if you talk briefly about constellations and their motion through the night sky and move over to the solar system and talk a little bit about the solar system bodies and then start to zoom out, that should take up about 45 minutes worth of presentation time. So that's what I was talking about when you're really only going to need to use sky and solar system view. These two are going to be the big ones that you will be using. If you're not seeing anything that you want pop up on kind of your background sky, it's going to be in this layers menu here. And you'll be able to access it down here by just clicking it. Or if you go to the view menu, you should be able to click it and open it here. One last thing, you can make your own custom shows that will move and kind of guide automatically. And that's going to be guided tours. There's going to be a folder with all kinds of them to look at. There's one for even learning, Worldwide Telescope. They're going to play like videos. So they're going to have a run length. You'll be able to move the camera through the night sky and record it and then kind of play it back. I don't have a lot of familiarity with this part of Worldwide Telescope. You can get by, and I've done all of my planetarium shows just with an Xbox 360 controller and these two menus here, sky and solar system. Those are going to be really about all you need to do a good solid 45 minutes to an hour planetarium show. Search here, you can look for specific objects. You can do an object search here. So if a student or guest really wants to look at the center of the Milky Way galaxy, you can type in Sagittarius A star. They want to really look at the pillars of creation, type it in there, all kinds of stuff. Communities tab is just going to be some folders with other shows. I don't believe we have any programmed in the computer at the planetarium at the moment. But yeah, that is going to be our overview of Worldwide Telescope. I am writing up a written procedure on how to use Worldwide Telescope that will be put in the planetarium and available in a Google Drive. So you'll be able to look through that if you're doing a planetarium show and you're a little bit fuzzy back on those details. But thanks for listening and hope you have a great rest of your day.